all what I heard was about the African-American struggle, and of course, the story of Malcolm X, because he visited my family. I was young, I was 2 years old, but he visited my father, and straight after he passed away, 48 years ago, my father sent straight away, just a few days after it happened, the money to help his wife, Dr. Shabazz, to come and to perform pilgrimage with the family. So they did it a few months after, when you were still not born, and you performed it first. In fact, as me, when I was young, I did exactly the same as my mother. So my first pilgrimage was unborn child. Alhamdulillah. So let me come to the talk and to start with some elements as an introduction, because the discussion this evening is, and can I ask you something? Even if you like something, you just don't clap, you just think about it, because it's a commemoration, and I think that all what you will hear, what I'm trying to do is just to enter into a personal experience, to try to get the essence of something which is an identity that is moving. Transformations mean the different steps through which he went. As you read the memoirs, when you try to understand his life, you get a sense that there is something that happened here. And I think that it's a mirror. At the end of the day, we have to come back to us. We are talking about him in order to get a better understanding of what we are trying to do with our own life. Is just not to remember him, but to get the message from his life. So it's a question of message and a question of teaching. It's a question of trying to understand. When someone, and this is just as an introduction, 3 points. The first is when you try to understand a life, and you try to understand, in fact, what makes someone enters Islam, converting to Islam. And to come to something which is a deep conversion. Conversion means what? It means exactly what you have when the Prophet ﷺ is saying, talking to Allah, Ya muqallib al-qulub, O you who turns the heart in one way or in another. And he's asking him, as he is already a Muslim, Thabbit qulubana ala dinik. Make our heart first into your religion. Meaning what? Anything could happen. Anything could happen. You can be a believer today and forget everything about Islam tomorrow. But you can be very far today and become a Muslim tomorrow. What makes you enter Islam? Which type of conversion and change in your identity? And this is where these transformations are so important, because there is something which is important very often, and this is wrong, by the way. Very often when people are talking about someone who converted to Islam, they ask her or him to forget about her or his past, which is wrong. You will understand the end of Malcolm X if you understand the beginning. You will understand the whole journey, because this is it. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We belong to him, when we come back to him, means think about the first steps in order to understand the last. And I think that this is important. Why? Because this is where he himself started this journey with something which was very important. All what you said about the fact that he understood the power of psychological colonization is coming from the beginning. It's coming from the first steps. He understood how powerful this culture could be if you don't get a sense of what are your roots and what is your path. So it's all about who I am, where I'm headed, and I will come to this, and I think that this is important in our discussion today when it comes to understanding the perception, the feeling that there was humiliation, discrimination, and it was a process of coming from the margin to the mainstream. And this is something that also it's important because there are steps, is how the people are negating your presence. It's a question of negation. Who are you? You are nothing. And the second step is resisting. I'm not going to accept what you want to do with me. I'm going to resist. So from being nothing to resisting, and then to come on something which is the last step, which is liberating yourself from who you want me to be, your own perception. These three steps are important. You might have read Nietzsche's philosophy. And there is something which is quite interesting in Nietzsche's philosophy. He said, you know what, you have to go through three steps to get freedom. The first is to understand first that at the very beginning you are like a camel. You bear what the people are putting on you. Second, you become a lion. Oh, I'm not going to let you do. I'm going to resist. And third, you become a child, free, innocent. Come to Islam now. And you have these three steps, and this is something which is important, it has to do with your identity. Inna an-nafsa la'ammaratun bis-su'. The nafs is pushing you towards something which is bad. So you are under the heavy load of oppression, self-oppression, inner oppression, intimate oppression. Ammaratun bis-su' is self, the self. The second is in-nafs al-ammara, is this ammaratun, in-nafs al-lawwama, resisting. It's a struggle. And the last step is what? In-nafs al-mutma'inna, at peace with oneself. Three steps, and you have to go through this. You come to Malcolm X's life and you get it. You'll see the steps. You'll see that there is something which, who is defining me? How am I going to resist? Where is freedom? What is freedom? What is revolution? And in fact, revolution has nothing to do with who you are struggling against. It's from where you are struggling. It's from where you are struggling. Am I struggling against you on your terms, on your parameters, or mine? Am I resisting you because you put me in a situation where I feel that I am on the margin because you are on the mainstream? Or am I coming on my own terms, resisting who you are and what you are doing? Which kind of power you have on me? And this, once again, is the central transformation. What is also important, even with Muslims now, and American Muslims and African American Muslims, there is something that too many of us are buying too quickly. Is there's perception that what is coming from Malcolm X and Ilhasya and Malaak Shabazz is the opposite of what is said and done out of the figure of Dr. Martin Luther King. And that's not acceptable. That's not only wrong, it's wrong on both sides. It's wrong with what is said about Dr. Martin Luther King, as if he was not advocating resistance and saying, we are going to resist, we are not going to be happy with what you are doing. And you want struggle, you want fight, we will be here. He said that, he did it. And Malcolm X was not all about violence. That's not true, you know, it's only revolutionary, it's the bad side of the Muslim resistance, and this is to make him outside the American narrative. The American narrative is non-violent Christian resistance. Malcolm X is a bit outside. He's not really one of us. Or he's going to be one of us or within us to show how much we are defining ourselves against violence and you know, the opposite of non-violent resistance. And I think that all the narrative, and get it right, there is something which is happening in this country which will have a tremendous impact if we are not serious about it. It's to make Islam and the Islamic presence in this country alien to the American narrative. And you can still, you know, talk about, you know, and expose Malcolm X and Ilhasya and Malaak Shabazz. Yes, he was an American, but still the dark side of the resistance. And I think that we can't accept this, and this is wrong. This is not true in historical term, in scientific term, and when you read and when you understand what he was saying. and to focus on the first part of his life and not the last 2.5 years. This is something which is tricky and sometimes ideologically orientated. There is something which is a diversion from the essence of his life and the third steps that we can see. And once again, there are more than that, but still, just to make it short to this evening, just summarizing and saying, okay, let us try to understand the 3 steps as revealing his own journey towards the resistance and also the final message that he had. He said something that was repeated by Nelson Mandela later. He said, you know what, at the end of the day, the means of resistance are decided by the oppressor. You decide how we are going to resist at the beginning. And then if you are really free from the oppressor, you decide the means. But the starting point of the resisting process is you decide, and you are going to be the one, if you are using psychological violence or the whole system, discrimination on the job market and alienation, of course, that the people are going to put themselves in a situation where they choose the means that were decided before by the oppressors and the people who are humiliating.